Okay. Ugh. Ugh. This video isn't supposed to look good. It's supposed to provide a bit of information and share the experience of what it is like right now. What's the date, Amy?
Today is the 20th of July, 2024.
What it's like to drive around the EU, travel around with UK passports right now. But most importantly, the border crossing through Bosnia from Croatia. The drive to actually film this was because if you are in the same situation we were, the challenge to find clear information was challenging, just that, very challenging. So there's many different factors to consider. If you list them, Amy, because you had more mental energy on that, what would those be?
So one thing for us was having Shadow, a dog, and seeing that there were many different border crossings around Croatia that took you into Bosnia, and some of them were very small, some of them were main crossings, and making sure that Shadow could cross okay. That was one of the things. Another thing was just making sure the car was in a state ready to cross, and just any factors that were involved that we maybe wasn't quite aware of, because we've been used to travelling around the EU where there's no borders. So I would say my biggest one at the beginning was Shadow, and seeing what he needed, if there was any extra tests or anything extra. We already have an EU passport for him that we got in Portugal, so he can travel freely. But yeah, I'd say that's sort of the main thing, really.
Okay, so if I was to list it out, if you're traveling with an animal, you've got to consider your animal, you've got to consider your car, you've got to consider where you're going, you've got to consider the 90 days within 180 days, you've got to consider your passport being up to date, you've also got to consider anything that might be going on at the time with any last minute emergency rules, and there's a lot of energy that needs to go into it. So in simple, go prepared, study as much as possible. Most valuable wise right now that can help speed things up is to use ChatGPT or something that's got an AI technology to it, and you just got to know what questions to ask that provides you at least direction, and then you dig from what the information GPT gives you into that. I think the most valuable thing that we found from Croatia to cross the border into Bosnia was making sure that we actually connected with someone that's done it. So you find them in Facebook groups, you can probably find them in Reddit, you can probably find them in different areas online. Amy, you specifically found someone on Facebook, right?
Yes, I found a few people on Facebook, but one thing that I would say about these Facebook groups is I've joined lots of dog travel Facebook groups and was asking the questions, because where we were in Croatia, we wasn't near any of the main border crossings, so to get to those big busy ones was about a 5-hour drive, and I wanted to see if we could cross one that was half an hour away from us. So I joined a Facebook group, a few of them, and put out a couple of posts and got some really good feedback. I actually met a woman who was based in Croatia, so she was able to give me some really good insight, and she actually helped me to find a local vet, because one of the things that comes out a lot for a dog needing to travel outside of the EU is something called a rabies titter test. So that is, all dogs need a rabies vaccine to be able to travel, and that will be in their EU passport. But if you go to certain countries outside of the EU, for them to then come back into the EU, they need to have this rabies blood test, and it basically is a blood test that shows that a certain level of the rabies vaccine is in their blood, as far as I'm aware. So it has to be above a certain amount. And where we're going in Bosnia, we didn't need to have one. If we go to Bosnia and then back to the EU, we don't actually need one. But I found a really good vet in Croatia where it was very cheap. They spoke English, they were very accommodating. So I went and actually got that done, and the results were back within a couple of days. Went back down there, got it in Shadow's passport, and that was it. It was done. Very simple, very easy. So yeah, if you're...
Well, that's not exactly true. Here's the important thing. This is a difference between feminine and masculine communication. It wasn't nice and easy. When you look at it in retrospect, it was. But the process here is, when you don't know this stuff, it's very stressful to find out that you need to do this. And that's the point. So it isn't nice, smooth and easy. Because here's one thing that was irritating. No one tells you about this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. No one's saying this to you. No one's giving you information. Sure, there's... when you go deep digging, there's some information you find, but is it up to date?
No. And so this is one thing that I would say is just go and do something. So for example, I was getting myself stressed out at home back at the Airbnb in Croatia because I was looking on this page, looking on that page. I spent hours. I spent a very, very long time. And I couldn't get any clear answers. I was even on Facebook chat to the EU people, government, whatever they are, and I couldn't get any clear response. I messaged the UK dog government travel part, and the part that was easy was when I actually went to the vets. I just turned up one day because I was trying to call them, I couldn't get through, and I was like, I'm just going to drive there. And from that moment when I just drove there, I didn't take Shadow, I just went on my own just to check they did it, and they were like, yeah, that's fine, come back on this day and we can do it. And it was really, really simple. So the overthinking, because of the lack of information that is out there, and also everyone's different experiences, because you'll see on these Facebook groups, like the border crossing that we just crossed, supposedly you can't take dogs through. Well, we did just take a dog through, and they wasn't interested in seeing Shadow's passport, they didn't care about looking inside it. It's very different to when we cross from the UK into France by the Eurotunnel, where you have to actually take the dog into a reception. They have to have their microchip scanned and everything like that. So that's one thing I would say, because before we went to this border, I was saying to Charlie, should we just do the longer drive and go to the border that we know dogs can go through? We didn't. We went to the shorter border, and just as well we did, because we've saved ourselves probably an hour and a half, maybe longer, on the journey. So Charlie is
this is about discernment, about what you're looking at, what you're reading, what the information says. You have to be able to discern. You have to be able to decide best for your situation. And this isn't information. This is a shared experience for you to basically figure it out. The motivation to do this isn't because this will likely go on YouTube, probably the best place. Not because we're YouTubers. It's because we're learning, and everything's changing on Earth, and the rules are ridiculous. And in this case, our experience was the specific border that we went through, and in a description it'd be easy to add where that was. We had our passports stamped, just mine and Amy's, on the Croatian and Bosnian. They're 100 meters, if that, apart. Out of Croatia, 50 meters, Bosnia, stamp. Didn't check car insurance, didn't check Shadow. So now we're in Bosnia. We're about an hour, 23 minutes away from our destination in Banja Luka. And the point is to close the gap. If you're looking to travel, especially me, quite naively, learning from last year, traveling to Vietnam, I'll travel, I'll figure it out as I go. And then how much you wake up to the way of the world, and how everything is policed and policied. So it's something to stay on top of, because it can change By the time this video is released, by the time that you're watching this, there could be a massively different role. Bosnia could be part of the Schengen zone by then. Who knows? Like, there's all this information, and this isn't an information dump. This is for people that are mid-research, trying to figure it out and get clarity from people that have actually had an experience. And that was ours. We are now in the first period of the 90 days we're allowed in the 180-day window within Bosnia, because it's outside of the European Union and the Schengen zone. So we are looking to, and if you're wise, likely you're doing the same thing, stay away from the UK as long as possible. And there's many other factors to consider, even beyond the 180-day window and the 90-day limit, is what happens with your MOT on the car, what happens with this. The ideal situation that we want to get across in this video is our experience, and just to say, it is stressful. This is not easy. It's easy and simple when you think about it on the other side, but anyone that's watching this isn't on the other side. Anyone that's watching this is also probably feeling like, yes, this is fucking frustrating. What is this? Where do I find this information? And it's important. And there was some really good people that Amy managed to find that provided value. So I have no idea who they are, but thank you to those people, in the same way that we will pay it forward to pass on the information and experience that we had. And then wherever this goes, likely YouTube, in the description, showcase the tools that we use. But if you don't have ChatGPT as a guide, you are going to spend so much more time just knowing where to look. I can literally say on ChatGPT, give me all information, websites and contact details for every border from Croatia into Bosnia, and within 15 seconds it can give me that. It's not the be all or end all, but if you don't know how to use technology and how to use the tools, it's going to be a very, very stressful situation. And the biggest thing is language. If you don't understand any other language other than English, sure, that's great, but like the entitlement to think that everyone should speak our language is crazy. And it's a reality that does really, really bring up communication breakdown, blocks, misdirection. It's very easy to listen to what people also say on Facebook groups and it'd be absolutely garbage and bullshit. So use your discernment, and me and Amy are very much about traveling. We work online, we run our own business. Ideally, all we're doing as a family is moving from Airbnb 4 or 5 weeks at a time and looking to really grow and live the best lives possible. So in this case, I would say the whole principle of traveling is an art form. Even just knowing, if I can find people through a platform like Airbnb and then connect with them, because we've stayed in Airbnbs and never had any hosts. We've just come away from Croatia and had tremendously amazing hosts. We were the first guests in their house. Great stay, 5 weeks. Now if we decide to go back to Croatia, and it's always good to know people, I cannot say how important it is when you get into a situation that might seem an almost emergency and you don't anticipate it, but it does happen. If you don't know anyone, you're fucked. And in our case, at least in Croatia, we know Millie and Tanya now, and if we ever do want to go back to that place, we don't have to go through Airbnb. So we get it cheaper, and we'll bypass the Airbnb fees, and we can also recommend friends to them. So I think that's the most part of what I've really got to share. So stay focused, stay ahead of it, close the gap on the tasks that you need to do, and definitely don't leave it last minute. Amy, do you have anything else to say?
Just be prepared. Be over prepared. One thing, especially since driving around when we did our first trip last year, one thing that Charlie made me really aware of is, rather than being like, oh, we've got this amount of time in the car, it's like, no, we've got a week in the car and we're prepared. We've got water, we've got snacks, we've got everything we need. Shadow is very nice and comfy on his little bed in the back, and we are prepared. And yeah, take us a week, that's cool. So just really prepare yourself if you're wanting to do this, especially if you are traveling with a dog, because
the context isn't clear there. What you're talking about, just to clarify, is if you've got to drive for 24 hours and you go in with the mindset that, oh, we've got a 24-hour drive, it will feel like a very long, laborious process. If you go in with a mindset like, we're in this car for the next week, and you overextend that, 24 hours is actually very short. And driving through Europe is actually amazing. Actually being able to drive and actually being able to get clarity on the roads. Obviously there's different zones. The adjustment to the right hand side of the road is piss easy. And technology does all the work for us. Whilst we're in a flow, here's another download. You get data packages so you can make sure that you get data. If you are in a shit situation like we were, because we got screwed over by O2, then you can just get an eSIM with a digital bank like Revolut, and that eSIM will give you data wherever you want it, in isolated local zones, globally, whatever it looks like. So in this case, the preparation for the travel is massive, and it's definitely something to enjoy. You can carry on, but when you're saying we're in the car for a week, we didn't drive for a week. I'm giving clarity.
Okay, thank you. My point was just to be over prepared, whether that is getting extra things like we did, getting Shadow this blood test. Who knows if we'll ever actually need it, but we've got it now, and as long as we stay on top of his rabies vaccine and it never expires, then that blood test is there for life for him. So it's so worth it. And if you are in the UK and you are looking to travel, because I have a lot of people that I see online that are in the UK and they're looking to travel with their dog for 90 days and then go back to the UK, you have to get an animal health certificate to be able to leave the UK and go over to France or wherever you're going. As soon as you get into Europe, find a vet that will do you an EU pet passport, because again, it's theirs for life. Shadow's got it now for his whole life, and it just makes it so much easier. I think ours cost us about €60 last year, and the animal health certificate to go from the UK out to Europe and only last for 4 months was £120. And you've got to do that every single time. You've got to book a vet appointment, you've got to do all that stuff, whereas we can just take him whenever we want. So yeah, be extra prepared. That's what I would end it with.
Yeah, and reach out to us if you're also traveling. This is another thing. I like less friends, definitely. But the reality is, to find other English speakers or even other people that are traveling and networking for a weekend or something like that, I think this is definitely something to leave in the description to define, really define what we do. And yeah, good luck out there, whatever you're doing.
Yeah. Is that all?
That's all.
Okay. Goodbye.